So, let me just kind of clear these. Were causing issues last week when I had to put something down. Okay. There we go. So the entrance to the hive is on that side, on the bottom. And we just give them a little bit. The bottom.
Calms
them down. It kind of drives them because they start trying to defend the hive. They come up, you smoke them, and they go back down, and they kind of leave you alone. So this first hive body.
Now it's a super, right?
That's the super. And so there shouldn't be really anything but honey being placed in there. Oh, they've been busy. I can already tell. There's a lot more production. A lot more wax. Down. So this stuff, I've been reading more about it this week because it's starting to become an issue. It wasn't an issue early in the season. It's called propolis, and it's this mix of honey, or of bee spit mixed with wax and then pine resin, any kind of tree resin that they can find in the area. And it is just spectacularly sticky stuff.
That's what keeps the hive shut.
Yeah, if the hive has a gap bigger than 3/8 of an inch, they seal it up with propolis. If it's bigger than 3/8 of an inch, they start putting honeycomb in the gap.
Wow.
So this is, but it's just like so sticky. Oh wow, they've been, that's cool. But we'll look at that one later. And then this little wire mesh, it's the queen excluder. The gaps are big enough for the worker bees to come through, but not the queen. So she stays out of there, and she won't put any eggs or anything in there. It's just going to be honey.
So what do they call that part of the hive?
This right here?
Yeah.
This second body? It's called an upper deep hive body. And this is where she has really started laying all of her eggs. It's in the upper deep. You just gotta kind of try to keep a little bit on top of this propolis, otherwise they can basically seal everything shut. It's hard to get it open.
And you're not worried about the queen getting out or anything?
No, because they're really established. You really need to be careful about that when you're first putting the bees in, because most often they're not even related to the queen, and so she can, if you don't be careful when you're first putting her in the hive, she can get driven out, she can just fly off on her own and you lose her. But now that she's established here, this is her home. She'll stay here pretty much unless they swarm. But first year we don't really worry about swarming apparently, because they're just getting used to everything, not really wanting to move yet.
Can you tell how much the population has increased or decreased just by looking at it, or?
It's significantly bigger. What I've read is that I know when you first buy your colony of 3 pounds of bees, it's about 10,000, bees. By the end of the season, it'll be between 50 and 60,000. So we're,
Quadruple,
yeah,
quintuple.
quintupled to sextupled, and then through the winter they die back down to about 10,000 come spring. I'm anticipating that this is probably pretty close to full capacity at this point. Okay, so we're just gonna quickly, I think maybe I'll just look at a couple frames in the bottom, because I don't think she's gonna be in there.
Where would she be?
She's most likely in this second, in this
The
upper,
one that you're touching on top.
yeah, the upper deep. Okay. And that weighs about 100 pounds right now. Or probably 70 pounds. Okay, so let's just see here how things are going down in here. They don't really like it, but it does get them out of the way.
So you don't squash them.
Yep. I've got some weird growth happening there. Okay, so let's pull out this right. The last couple weeks they've been turning this bottom, this is the lower deep, they've been turning it into their honey stores. So yeah, that's all this right here. Oh, come on girls, don't want to squash it. Oh, just squashed it. Yeah, sorry. This all here is honey that they've capped off. And then this kind of white or
Right.
glistening stuff, that's nectar that will become honey. This yellow stuff is pollen that they've stored. So that's all honey. So
And is that what you want or no?
that's what we want, because you want them to have about 60 to 70 pounds of honey of their own come winter.
So
that
when do you actually spin the honey?
we may be able to get some, like, looking at what they're doing with that super, I'm hoping that like end of July, maybe even August, we might be able to get some.
So do you, with the bottom, just leave that?
Yeah.
And don't take the honey out of it?
Nope, I don't touch this stuff. They have to keep this stuff. Otherwise,
They know what's best for them. As
right.
far
Oh, so the queen has been down here this week because
as eggs.
if you look right in here, do you see those? They look like shrimp.
Right.
Those are
Those are
larvae.
larvae.
And then they cap them off at about 7 days. So this is capped larvae right here. And that, so she's been here within the last 7 days.
And is that okay?
Yep. That's good. And I can put honey and pollen and babies all in the same frame. I'm just gonna kind of peek sideways in here. I don't really want to bug them too much. I do want to look at the second one. Go down. Second body.
It's interesting how they just go down.
Yeah. They don't like it. And nobody knows exactly why. Some people think it's like it messes up the pheromone signals in the hive. Some people think it triggers a survival, like they think it's a fire, so they go inside the hive to kind of flap their wings and cool things down.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of larvae there.
Which means it's healthy.
Yep.
If you found nothing, then
you'd be in, yeah. Then we'd think, okay, either the queen died or she's flown off. I've lost her somehow. But this is looking good. Okay. They're all in the way. I think that's all I want to look on the bottom, on that lower deep. I haven't seen her I haven't seen the queen for 2 weeks now. I know she's here because she's laying eggs, but I do always kind of want to see her. So we'll just close this back up.
And they have in the thing it has stops, so you know.
No, it doesn't have.
It separates. Aren't those little pieces of wood that separate?
Oh, yeah.
It's like they're dovetailed in.
Exactly. They're dovetailed in, and they are built so that the gap
That's
between the frames right here, this frame space, that's 3/8 of an inch. So, I mean, it's, yeah. It's amazing how people, I have no idea how people figured all that stuff out. You know, hundreds of years of just observing.
And when you think of how long beekeepers have
been around.
It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, there are bees, and you know that bees were being tended and kept in ancient Egypt. But one of the cool things is this type of hive is called a Langstroth hive. Ew, I just squashed one really bad. And it was invented in Italy by a guy in Italy in the late 1800s. And
it really hasn't been improved upon.
It hasn't really been improved upon. And what's amazing is before this hive was developed, you basically had to kill your colony to gather the honey.
Oh.
And so what's really amazing is the guy who developed this, I think his late name was Langstroth, he figured out a way to access the honey without destroying your colony, without obliterating all the work that they've done. Because with the way this works, we can cut off the caps on the honey, spin the honey out, but leave the honeycomb behind.
So they don't have to rework.
They don't have to rebuild it. And in the past, they had like the old-fashioned honeybee hives, you know, that
right.
look like a mound. That's what people used for thousands of years.
And they had to destroy that.
You had to just tear it apart and destroy the colony, and you know, ruin everything that they had built. So these hives are pretty cool. Okay, let's see how you're doing up here, because there was a little bit of brood down in the lower deep, but not much. I'm gonna just make sure that, oh yeah, okay, she's doing really well. So this, they've got more honey here. You got capped brood, more honey there, but then if we flip this over on this side, lots of honey, and then on that lower half, that's all brood.
Do they leave that area of brood pretty much as brood?
No, they can use the cells for multiple things over the cell's lifetime. So it might someday become pollen stores or honey. They store the honey, they start at the top of the frame and work down. So you always find the honey in this area first, and then they start filling it up more. But like this guy, okay, so that guy right there, that's a drone.
Oh yeah.
He's a lot bigger.
Yeah.
And his eyes curl up over the top of his head.
Oh, interesting.
And then these are all workers.
What percentage are drones?
That is a good question. I don't know what percentage, not many. And they really don't do anything except hope that when the queen goes out on a flight, they can mate with her. They don't build anything in the hive.
So the world has no need for the drone. Isn't that the song
Yeah.
that they changed?
So.
So when my grandpa would go and drop a hive into a box,
Yeah.
he'd use the smoke,
Yeah.
and they would just eventually fall into a box, and
Yep.
he'd drive them in his trunk of his,
Yeah.
his Chrysler.
I gotta say, when I was driving home with this colony of bees in the back of my car, that is a moment where you are aware of absolutely everything around you. You're like, whoa, please.
No
You are-
accident.
No accidents. You are hyper alert to everything going on around you. Because in my mind, I was just thinking, I've got 10,000 bees in the back of my car.
Now, if you were to switch where the trays are,
You can do that, and for certain reasons you do that, and I haven't done that yet. And that can encourage honey development or whatnot, because they start from the inside, move out, but I've just kind of let them do what they want to do, and so far it all seems to be going really well. Towards the end of the year, though, one thing that I have read that I'll be doing is you switch this box and that box, and then I guess that helps them gear up for the winter better. Seeing a lot of blue. That's good. Just going to do one more frame on this box, and then I'll just crack open my super just to see how it's going.
is there a point at which you have too many bees?
Yes, and that's when they start getting ready to swarm. And there are signals that a swarm is about to happen. Wow, she's been crazy busy. I mean, that is almost all capped brood.
Yeah.
So we're doing good. Even though I haven't seen her now for almost a month, I'm okay because she's definitely in there. So yeah, they start. When the queen starts getting old, or she's not doing well, or they get too crowded, they might decide, okay, it's time to split the colony and have some of us go with a new queen or the old queen, or they just say, look, it's too crowded in here, not enough space. And as you're leading up to that, they develop a new queen. And a queen cell looks like a peanut hanging off the bottom of the frame.
Oh yeah.
And so if you see too many of those, and in a certain location on the frame, if they start showing up higher on the frame and you have like 6 or 7 or 8 of them, you know they're getting ready to swarm. And there are steps you can take to prevent that. Basically like getting rid of all of the queens, because if they don't have a new queen, they will just hang out here. You can then split the hive and get a new hive and put half of them in the new hive.
And they can still be in the same
Yeah, and
area.
and they will develop into a separate colony. And
the colonies live fine next to each other.
right. And the bees will know which colony they belong with, because they get used to their queen's pheromones and her signals, her chemical signals. So okay, girls, let's see if I can get you in here without rolling anybody. Oh, lots of bees there. Okay. And you are in. Okay, let's get your smoke down. I'll put the queen excluder on. super on it. This is looking cool. Because
So it looks good.
it looks good. From what I can see, just looking down in, they have developed a lot more honeycomb over the last week. I mean,
Now you shouldn't see obviously any brood in this at all.
correct, because that's what the excluder does, is it keeps the queen out, so she can't lay any eggs up here. So let's just see.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
honey.
They have got that frame almost completely drawn
So
out.
how many pounds of honey will you get out of a single tray?
Out of a single frame, I've read that you can get between 6 and 7 pounds.
Which is
Um,
a pint, roughly. or
yeah,
Less than a pint.
less than a pint. Well, no, I mean, it's going to be more than a pint, because a pint of water is a pound. So it's going to be
Is
heavier.
honey that much more heavier than
I think
water?
so.
That'd be interesting. You know what's interesting? You've always heard of pints a pound the world around.
Yeah.
Pint is actually not a pound.
Really?
It's 1 point something 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 of a pound. And I always thought that was almost the definition of a pint was
A pound of water.
a pound of water. It's not.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're already capping. That's going to be good. And
Now you when you started that frame, did you give it a starter?
yeah, there's, if you look, let me see if I can find one that shows you a little bit. So there's this, you have this wooden frame, and then inside the frame, you put this sheet of black plastic.
Yeah, I can
You
see
can
it.
see how it's got black underneath.
And it just mates right up to that perfectly.
Right, and the it's called a foundation, and the foundation already has the honeycomb pattern kind of lightly imprinted on it, and they just follow that pattern and add all of this white wax. So
And
they've
you can, after you cut the wax, you cap it, or
Yeah.
whatever, you can reuse that frame again.
yeah, again and again and again,
Interesting.
and yeah,
I think I've told you this, but the stake my dad was the stake president of in California.
uh-huh,
You know how we have orchards and
Yeah.
cornfields and all sorts of things
Yeah.
in the welfare program.
yeah.
They did honey,
Oh, that's cool.
and they would make enough off of the honey that they hired a full-time guy to drive around and rent out
The hives.
They'd rent out the hives
Yeah,
to the farmers, and then all they would need is a fairly small group to spin the honey
yeah,
periodically,
yeah.
and so that's what you signed up for instead of signing up for going to the farm, weeding or whatever.
It was to extract the honey.
It was the honey,
That's cool.
and they had thousands of hives,
Yeah,
and it produced honey for the welfare program of the church, for the bishop's storehouse.
yeah. That's cool.
But somebody was smart enough to think, economically, this beats the heck out of buying a farm.
Yeah. Well, there's a really interesting documentary. It's kind of scary on Amazon called The Pollinators,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about the industrial bee industry. And basically, long story short, when it's time to pollinate the almond crop in Southern California, basically every single commercial beehive in the country is trucked across country to Southern California for those few weeks, just to pollinate
All the trees.
the almond trees. And then then there's a whole pattern of then trucking it. That's kind of the beginning of the pollinating season. There's a whole pattern. They go up and down the country to all the different crops. And because of the way that agriculture is done now with these huge, massive, miles long farms with one crop, there are not enough pollinators, native pollinators. And the concern that all the industrial beekeepers now are grappling with is we don't have enough bees. There just aren't enough bees in the country to pollinate the way that our agriculture needs it to be pollinated. And there aren't native pollinators in the area because the native pollinators need more than just one crop.
Right.
They need multiple crops through the year to blossom at different times of the year, and it's just not the way it works anymore. And so the native pollinator populations in Southern California have just collapsed. They aren't there anymore. It's crazy. Oh, one more thing. I gotta feed them because we are in a drought. I gotta make sure that they have supplemental syrup or they won't make it. So
That's just simple sugar.
it's simple sugar. It's 1 pound water to 1 pound sugar, and then
Heat it up.
yeah, and then you cool it down, and then there's some probiotics that I get from IFA that you put it, and that's what makes it look like honey. This gives it the yellow color.
And is that intentional that it looks like honey? So they
No, I don't know.
attracted
That's a
to
good
it?
question. I think it's just that's what the probiotics do to it,
Mm.
and that helps their guts and keeps them healthy. So, but they've been going through about 2 quarts of that a week just to stay alive.
So is that strap in case you need to strap the whole thing?
Yeah, in case it gets too windy, just kind of protect it a bit.
You want this or that?
Yeah, we can bring that out. So that was it.
That's fascinating. And there.